The Chicago Bears have been hit with more tough news, and it couldn't come at a worse time. On Saturday, the team announced two major injuries that have shaken up the roster, and the consequences could last well beyond this week. The first and biggest headline is about Jaylon Johnson, the Bears' standout cornerback. Johnson has officially been placed on injured reserve after suffering another groin injury. By rule, this move sidelines him for at least 4 games. But the real concern is whether this is actually the end of his season. A groin injury can be tricky, and this one has been described as complicated. Some believe surgery might be necessary, while others wonder if he could rehab and possibly return in a couple of months. Either way, losing Johnson is a devastating blow. He's been one of the most reliable pieces on a defense that has struggled for consistency. Without him, the secondary suddenly looks thin and vulnerable against passing attacks. For a team already facing challenges, Johnson's absence leaves a huge hole. The second player headed to injured reserve is Kieran Amegadjie, the rookie offensive lineman. Earlier this week, he showed up on the practice report with an elbow injury. At first, it seemed minor, but it quickly became clear that it was serious enough to land him on IR. This is especially frustrating because Amegadjie had no injury concerns coming into practice. But something went wrong mid-session and he hasn't practiced since. The bigger picture with Amegadjie is even more concerning. When he has been healthy, he hasn't made a strong impression. The coaching staff recently experimented with moving him inside to guard, hoping it would give him a clearer role. But right now, he sits at the very bottom of the depth chart as the 10th lineman on the roster. The Bears had hopes he could develop into at least a reliable backup, but even that feels uncertain at this point. His first year is quickly turning into a lost season. So in one stroke, the Bears lose a proven starting cornerback and a young offensive lineman trying to find his place. Johnson's injury threatens the defense's stability, while Amegadjie's absence highlights ongoing issues with roster depth and draft results. It's another tough chapter in what has already been a challenging season. With 2 players moved to injured reserve, the Bears needed to reshuffle the roster, and they wasted no time making a key adjustment. Tanoh Kpassagnon has officially been promoted from the practice squad to the 53-man roster. This move felt like it was coming, and now it's confirmed. In Week 1, Kpassagnon made his presence known with a sack, and since then, he's been one of the few defensive linemen who has shown promise. Compared to Dominique Robinson, who has struggled to produce, and Daniel Hardy, who has mostly played on special teams, Kpassagnon has looked more effective. For a team desperate to improve its pass rush, this addition could provide much-needed energy. But what's interesting is that the Bears did not immediately fill all their roster spots. With Johnson and Amegadjie both landing on IR, the team technically had 2 openings. After adding Kpassagnon, they decided to stop at 52 players instead of a full 53. This is unusual but may be a short-term strategy. The team is monitoring Austin Booker and Travis Homer, who will both be eligible to return from IR after next week's game. By leaving one spot open, the Bears give themselves flexibility to bring one of those players back without having to make another cut. In addition to promoting Kpassagnon, the Bears elevated 2 players from the practice squad for game day, Carl Jones Jr. and Dallas Flowers. These moves were necessary because of the injuries in the secondary. Earlier reports mistakenly mentioned Trey Flowers, but it's been confirmed that Dallas Flowers was the one called up. Even though he isn't well known, the Bears simply need bodies in the defensive backfield. If he's forced into action, that shows just how thin the roster has become. This raises a critical question: can these replacements truly make a difference? The NFL is often a league of depth, where backups are thrown into the spotlight without warning. For the Bears, the answer will determine whether they can keep competing or whether the losses will pile up. Players like Kpassagnon, Jones and Flowers may not have been expected to play big roles this season, but now the pressure is on. As if this matchup needed more drama, the Bears aren't the only team dealing with injuries. Their opponent, the Dallas Cowboys, just received a piece of news that could dramatically affect Sunday's game. Star cornerback Trayvon Diggs was added to the injury report with a knee problem. This comes as a surprise because earlier in the week, his only issue was an illness. He returned to practice and appeared fine, but now this new injury raises serious doubts about his availability. The Cowboys are already without Darren Bland, another starting corner, which means if Diggs can't go, their secondary would be severely weakened. This situation feels strangely familiar because the Bears are facing the exact same problem. With Jaylon Johnson and Kyler Gordon both out, Chicago is also missing its top two cornerbacks. If Diggs joins Bland on the sidelines, both teams will go into the game without their top defenders in coverage. That sets the stage for an unpredictable matchup where backup players will be tested like never before. For the Bears, this could be a golden opportunity. Rookie quarterback Caleb Williams and his group of receivers might finally get favorable matchups against a short-handed Dallas secondary. If the offensive line can give Williams enough time, the passing game could find success in ways it hasn't so far this season. The Cowboys are already preparing for the worst by elevating two corners from their practice squad, just in case Diggs can't suit up. That shows they're concerned, and it mirrors what Chicago has had to do with their own depth players. So what does this all mean? Sunday's game may not be decided by the usual stars. Instead, it could come down to backups and replacements, players most fans barely know. Which team adapts faster? Which coaching staff puts their reserves in the best position to succeed? That could be the difference. For the Bears, this is a chance they can't afford to waste. Injuries have hurt them badly, but for once, they're not the only ones dealing with problems. If Caleb Williams and the offense can take advantage of Dallas's weakened secondary, Chicago might just turn this setback into an opportunity. This game is no longer just about two big-name franchises clashing, it's about who can survive the storm of injuries and still find a way to win. The Bears have lost their defensive leader in Jaylon Johnson, while the Cowboys may have to play without Trayvon Diggs. Both secondaries are thin, and both teams are scrambling to fill the gaps. For Chicago, this is an unexpected opportunity. If Caleb Williams can stay poised and his receivers win their matchups, the Bears could finally flip the narrative. Instead of being the team that suffers from setbacks, they could be the team that takes advantage of them. At the end of the day, this matchup will come down to resilience. Which roster adjusts faster? Which backups rise to the moment? And which coaching staff has the right answers when their stars are missing? One thing is certain. Sunday's game promises drama, surprises, and maybe even a chance for the Bears to show they're ready to turn a corner.